Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Raphan Reviews. Today is going to be the first video of a few where I look at some of Zayt's games in the FNCS Invitational Week 2. I wanted to look at Zayt because many consider him to be one of the smartest minds in competitive Fortnite, and he doesn't stream, so if you want to get inside the mind of this particular IGL, you have to look at his in-game replays from tournaments. That being said, let's get into the first match I'm going to look at, which is the very first game of the tournament. I wanted to see how he starts off the tournament, and Zayt is such a good player. I think we can learn a lot from his first game, even though he gets 11th and doesn't get any kills. Let's get in there. Alright, so Zayt drops into Sweaty Sands, his POI of choice, and you can see on the map he ends up splitting it with two other players. Teke gets the docks, and Luke is going to get the west side. I'm going to speed it up in a bit, but as he's looting, watch how he gets a launch pad because he's just so smart, and also watch how he breaks through the floors here, getting to the most accessible loot spawns and hits all the chests as he breaks through the floors in this building. He really puts on a clinic of how to loot the main building in Sweaty Sands in a stacked lobby, where you want to get to the chest as fast as possible and loot as much as possible in as little time as possible. From dropping in, he saw that these are pretty safe to go loot, so he loots these buildings, these chests. He has a good shotgun now, a good AR, and he doesn't need to be greedy. Purple shotgun, purple AR. He just prioritizes getting the metal, getting his metal up to max here. And once he gets his metal up to max, he goes back for a few loot spawns he may have missed in the big tower and establishes a dominant height position. One of the things that I'm guessing is attractive to Zayt about the tower in Sweaty is that if you ever get zone, as they've gotten, it's on dead side of zone, and it's the dominant high ground position. So if you can stay on and protect the tower, and you're in zone, you can be well in zone, but on dead side, dominant high ground position, and so he just stays here. And when you're this far in zone, when zone has pulled this far west and you're on the tower, it's possible that the next zone and the next zone could come here. You know, it's possible that fourth zone could come and be where the tower is still in fourth zone. So he has a pad, he has good weapons, no need to move out more from this. He keeps the tower. I'm going to skip ahead to when zone closes. The new zone comes, and he was in it, but just barely. So we see Zayt here, he's on dead side, gets a pretty clean rotate in to this next zone. So he's able to complete his rotate. He boxes up, and he sees that there's this build right next to him. He starts spraying at it, and the walls aren't being rebuilt, and he senses, hey, this looks like a fight that's over. Maybe there's no one in these boxes. He sees that there's loot in there. He goes over, is able to get a great refresh from this loot, back up to max mats, chooses to keep the 3 medkits over 1 flopper, which I think is quite interesting. And you'll see with his playstyle, he likes to get ahead in zone, often from padding or running along the side of zone, taking some storm damage. And then he gets to the front of zone, and he's able to have the time to take a medkit even in full moving zones. So that's definitely one of the things I learned from watching this video, is you can prioritize having a medkit more, especially in stacked lobbies. He also prioritizes, again, for these first couple of zones, getting to a dominant height position that's near enough to center, and you can see he's quite near to center, where maybe he'll get in the next zone. And point of fact, he ends up being rewarded for it and gets zone again and doesn't have to move from this position. Now, from here on, he gets a few tags on people but doesn't get kills and plays safe. He's able to stay in this box for this zone and the next zone Alright, I've skipped ahead, and we'll be able to watch the rest of this one at normal speed, see how this endgame plays out. He sees that zone is basically max distance. And I talked in a previous video how in opens, use your pads. You don't need to worry that much about reusing one. But the opposite is true in a stacked FNCS endgame. There's still 50 players alive as we go towards moving zones, and so he makes it a big priority to build over to a cluster of people that he thinks is likely to pad and reuse a pad so he can keep his pad. So you see he's going to build over, hoping that either clicks or the other players stacked on that are going to use a pad, and that ends up paying off. These players ahead of him end up using a pad, and he's able to get over and reuse the pad, keeping his pad for later. So really great awareness by him, and it's a theme with him where you use your inventory if you can afford to, but save the inventory if you can afford to, and play out the whole game in such a way that you can play out the whole game with the inventory you have. He wants to use that pad later, so he wants to save it for now. Another interesting thing he does as he tries to get some shots on players here, he doesn't use that medkit yet. He tries for the next 30 seconds to get tags, maybe get an AR kill with a third party. But once zone is about to move, he goes ahead and uses that medkit. Because realistically, do you need all 3 medkits? Probably not. You're probably not going to get time to use all 3 medkits. Maybe 2, probably 1, but you don't need the 3rd medkit. And so here, when he hasn't gotten a kill, he goes ahead and uses that medkit to get his HP up to full as we go into the moving zones. He also starts hearing many pads around him, so he's going to try and conserve this pad again. Because it's still a stacked game, there's still 35 alive. This game isn't going to end at 6 or 7 zone. It might go to 8th or 9th. So he wants to keep that pad around to use later. And he luckily hears a pad right next to him, is able to hop over here and take it, keep that pad. He sees that loot on the ground, and so he's going to glide over towards it, build around it, knowing that he's ahead of zone now, and he has the medkits to get his health back up. He also knows he needs the medkit, definitely, to get the health back up. So even though big pots are usually more valuable, he drops the big pots for the RPG so he can take some medkit. He's able to get this off after being pressured a little bit. Starts building towards zone. Gets aggressed here a bit. And he makes a really interesting play. He low pads to the other side of the zone, because this zone is moving a bit from south to north. So north is going to be slightly more dead than south. So he gets a little bit away from the congestion, is able to take another medkit, and avoids having to use as many builds because he just has to go directly west since he's on the right. He's gone enough north with that pad. He doesn't have to path north. He just gets to go straight east to west. Now he only has 10 builds. And he's going to make the most that he can out of these 10 builds. And he's not going to die until he's used almost all of his builds. And that's also real impressive for me. He dies when he has basically 0 mats left. Or actually 0 mats left. And here he's running back to see if he can make a storm play and get shot in the back. And he only dies here when he completely runs out of mats. So he did all he could with his inventory. You know, maybe he could have been more conservative with mats earlier. That's arguable. I don't really think so. And even though this ends up being an 11th place finish, where Zayt doesn't win the game, doesn't get any kills, I think it's still an impressive performance and something that most players can learn from. And makes me understand a little bit why Zayt doesn't stream. You know, if you're a competitor and you don't want to be a content creator, maybe you want to keep some of those tips to yourself. So, hope you enjoyed this review of Zayt's first game in the second round of FNCS Solos. If you liked the video, share it with a friend. If you really liked the video, feel free to follow me on socials. And have a good one. Timing. Wow.